Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast. Time to hashtag everything. We talk about all the fun, crazy stories on social media. From Instagram to Facebook, Twitter to Tumblr, or probably even Friendster. Join us each week as we explore the quirky side of social media. It's the Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast.
It's simple, such a sad song. The one that we rely on to get us.
Thanks for tuning in to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Hey there, I'm your host, Kayla Moeller. Hope everybody enjoyed a nice weekend of social distancing. I know I did. I played card games with the elderly woman that I live with. She taught me 2 games. One of them was called 5 Crowned, and the other one was called Sequence. I liked Sequence better, but they were both pretty fun. So let's get right to it. Coronavirus this, coronavirus that, I get it, you've heard it all. But there's not anything else to talk about. 2020 is canceled. So I've been trying to make it interesting by talking about it from different angles, like how last week I went into some conspiracy theories and celebrities who have the virus, and I'll dive deeper into that this week as well. But stuff like that. So this time, I'm going to get into equipment shortages, what's actually being done about it, and kind of the timeline that we can expect. So if you haven't heard by now, we are experiencing a pretty severe shortage of just about everything. We're already out of masks, protective suits, gloves, and goggles, and pretty soon we are about to be short hospital beds and ventilators. Now, what exactly are ventilators? What do they do, and why do we need them? So a ventilator is essentially life support. If you're on life support, you're most likely on a ventilator machine, which basically breathes for you. It pushes oxygen through your body and keeps the movement and rhythm like you're breathing, even though you're not actually doing it yourself. So basically, when you're on a ventilator, it's doing all the work for you, so your body doesn't have to do any effort, and instead it can use that time to rest and recover. Very uncomfortable to be on a ventilator. There's tubes all in your mouth, down your throat, through your nose, all up in you. So patients are usually pretty sedated, so they aren't aware and in pain, or so they don't begin to panic. Because, if you come to and then all of a sudden you have all this stuff down your throat, and that's probably pretty scary. So people tend to panic, so they kind of just knock them out with drugs. So you're technically awake, you're just zooted out of your mind. So you don't really know what's going on. You can hear and stuff, but you're just on drugs. So you're hearing things, but it's with drug ears, so it's like not really like you're hearing. You obviously can't talk because there's tubes down your throat. It just sounds like a terrible experience, but it's necessary sometimes. So some people with this virus are experiencing extreme respiratory failure, and they're first put on oxygen to help with their breathing. So like they might be breathing 80% on their own, 20% with oxygen, and then a couple days later they could get worse and then be breathing 40% on their own and 60% on oxygen, and so on until you need to be put on a ventilator. And these are only going to be for extreme cases, which let's say are 5% of cases, I think I read. And that could still be hundreds of thousands of people, depending on how bad the outbreak gets here. And the US only has something like 160,000 ventilators total. So we're definitely going to need more ventilators. Because if you can't breathe, you can't breathe. And that's it. They're absolutely imperative. We just need to get more ventilators coming. And of course, what are the super rich trying to do? Buy ventilators for themselves in preparedness. And ventilators run about $35,000 a piece on average. And to some, that's more money than they make in a whole year. And then to others, it's like they wouldn't even notice that it's gone. So the people who wouldn't even see a dent in their bank account after a $35,000 withdrawal are obviously trying to buy their own for their house. I get it. Everyone's in a panic. And if you have the funds, why not? Well, first of all, with all that money, then these rich people should buy 1,000 ventilators and donate 999 of them. Odds are they won't even need that ventilator that they bought for themselves anyways. But second of all, more like the reality of it all is that there just aren't ventilators to buy. They need to be made. And the world obviously wasn't prepared for something like this to happen. And according to the New York Post, between 5 and 10 companies in the whole world supply most of our ventilators. And the super rich are calling those places and other places alike, asking for one to be made for them. And the companies are being like, no, we'll get you one when you need it. But for now, if there's an extra ventilator lying around, I'm obviously going to give it to the dying person in front of me. And apparently some of these rich people have even asked if they could make a fully equipped ICU in their own house. And I guess that's a no too. And I was just doing my research for this, and I decided to search for ventilators on the web to buy. And there's definitely stuff out there, like on eBay, claiming to be used ventilators. I don't know the parts of the machine, so I'm not sure if it's the whole thing or maybe it's just a key component or what it is. It had to have been just one part though, because it was only like $3,000. And they're going for like $35,000 on average. So it must have just been a part. Or they're just scamming people, which is really sad because people are desperate. So they might fall for it right now. Oh, capitalism. It's a love and hate relationship. So how do we get more ventilators quickly and who's going to pay for them? Well, I'll tell you about that after the break. Stay tuned.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Hi, I'm back. I was talking about ventilators and how they're the same thing as life support, and we need a lot more of them, like right now, ASAP. And even rich people are trying to get their hands on them, and they can't. So if even rich people can't find them, then we really must be having a shortage. But what is being done about all this? Trump keeps saying help is on the way, but from who and when? Well, one answer is from Tesla and also General Motors and Ford. They're all stepping up in the shortage of ventilators. Good. But for now, I'm just going to focus on Tesla. So Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, has partnered with a company called Medtronics to make these so-called state-of-the-art ventilators. And Medtronics is an Ireland-based company who primarily serves the U.S. market. And this past weekend, Tesla sent out tens of thousands of N95 masks to hospitals, just themselves. Just only Tesla did this. And N95 masks are a lot different than just your regular old face masks that you see your everyday person wearing. N95 masks have a mini filtration system built in them that remove particles from the air you're breathing before it gets into your body. So if you're with a sick person and you breathe in around them, then the mask will filter out the bacteria or virus, therefore protecting you. So it's super important that healthcare workers have access to these masks so they can stay healthy and continue treating patients. And these masks, they get sealed onto your face, and it has to be worn properly in order to really work. And you have to be pretty healthy yourself to even wear one because it takes some getting used to. You're breathing through it, and if you have underlying, maybe you have really bad asthma, then this kind of isn't something for you because it takes a lot of getting used to breathing through it. And I've seen a lot of doctors sharing selfies on social media with the N95 masks off. They're not on their face. And you can see that they're bruised all around their face from where the mask suctions because they've been wearing them so much for such long hours nonstop every day because of this outbreak. So when they're taking off the mask, these poor doctors and nurses are having all of these bruises left over. And then they can't even let them heal because the next day they just have to go put the mask back on again. Bless our healthcare workers. There's no rest for them. They're stressed. They're taking things personally. They're sleep deprived. They're not seeing their families. They really are the whole world's heroes right now. They're incredible people right there on the front lines. So anyways, Elon Musk has been telling media outlets and Twitter, he's been tweeting about this all the time, replying to people asking for help and whatnot. But he's saying that Tesla will have over 1,000 ventilators ready to distribute by sometime by the end of the week, which is great and all, but we're going to need a lot more than that. So I hope he keeps them coming, especially because this is the week we've been waiting for. This is supposedly the week things are going to take an ugly turn in the United States. Facebook has also donated some of these respirator masks, the N95 masks. They had an emergency supply of 720,000 masks that were originally bought during the wildfire crisis. But they've now all been donated for this emergency, thank goodness. And Mark Zuckerberg also said that they're working on millions more to be donated. And that's what everybody's saying. Everybody is saying they're working on it. They're working on it. And all these companies should have been working on this weeks ago. Things take time. You can't just conjure these things up overnight. And now it's starting to be too late. It's not like our officials didn't know that this was coming, but they instead chose to downplay it, and now we're experiencing this huge shortage of the most basic supplies and equipment. It's really frustrating. Okay, but back to ventilators. So according to Elon Musk, the hardest part about all of this has been the delivering of them and getting them installed and operated. They have to be flown, shipped, etc. And they're getting held up at some places. And then there's so many of them, it's like, well, where do we put them? But now these hospitals are starting to put beds and ventilators in empty warehouses, like it's wartime or something. It's different because it's on our soil. But then you have to get these ventilators up and running and tested and all that. And that takes time too. We're just behind. We should have been doing all of this weeks ago. And even if we did this weeks ago, we'd still be struggling. We wouldn't even be prepared. We wouldn't be ahead of it. We just wouldn't be as behind as we are now. And however, there's also a whole different side to this. Actual ventilator manufacturers are not thrilled with Elon's idea to just all of a sudden start mass producing them. They're worried that in reality, Tesla will just be taking away these much needed parts from actual certified manufacturers who have been doing this. That's all they do. And they think that he's in over his head and it's not as simple as just creating ventilators out of thin air. It takes a skilled team, a lot of regulations, you got to ensure patient safety, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, everybody's kind of desperate right now, so I guess we'll take what we can get. But every manufacturer on the planet right now is struggling and scrambling to get these parts, including Elon Musk. And then it's a matter of, does he actually know what he's doing? Do you trust Elon Musk? I mean, I guess we don't really have a choice right now. So by the end of this week, we'll hopefully have about 1,200 safe ventilators to be put to use. But that's a very small number compared to the people who need them. So hopefully it starts being more like 1,200 a week that are being made and put to use. Probably not, but that's what we need. And the mayor of New York has been saying that they've needed more ventilators for about 2 weeks now. So how are these 1,200 ventilators going to be distributed? Are they all going to go to New York hospitals? But then what about Seattle or the Bay Area? These are all hard-hit places, and they all need stuff too. And I can't find any information on where the ventilators will be sent or if they'll be split up all to the same place. I can't find anything on that. And pretty soon, we're going to have 10 more cities that are in desperate need of ventilators. So it's just kind of a huge mess, and I'm just curious as to how they're deeming one place more in need of them than another place. Okay, after the break, I will get into the numbers of cases around the world and what we think about China's immediate response right when their outbreak started. So stick around.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hey, I'm back. So we were just talking about Tesla's plan to make ventilators and whether or not that's helping, because everyone around the world is scrambling for parts, and maybe Tesla should just leave it to the actual manufacturers who have been trying really hard to ramp up production. So now let's talk numbers. As of now, there are about 373,000 cases worldwide with the virus. And that's not counting people who have it and haven't been tested. These are just people who have tested positive, but a lot of people don't have access to a test, so the number is probably actually much higher than that. And the U.S. is at 42,000 confirmed cases. Again, there's probably more than that. And it's definitely increasing with each day. So this got out of hand very quickly. Just a matter of a few measly months. And it all started with China, obviously. And they totally downplayed it, silenced their doctors, hushed their journalists. And U.S. spies and intelligence warned the president, our president, of China's downplaying. They warned him of the downplaying back in January, saying, hey man, this is pretty bad, worse than China's leading on, so maybe do something about it. And instead of doing something about it, Trump took China's lead and also decided to downplay it. As to why, I'm not exactly sure, but critics are saying it was to save his numbers for re-election. He didn't want something bad happening when he's about to win office again. Blah, blah, blah. But guess what? Life waits for no one, Donald, not even you. And he had the opportunity to really make a difference and slow down the spread here in the U.S. when he knew the severity of it in January. But instead, tried to play it off as some common flu and even went as far as to call it a Democratic hoax. Well, I mean, he didn't call the virus itself a hoax, but he said that this whole thing of the media telling us to take it seriously was a way to politicize it and that not to take it seriously because it's the Democrats' new hoax. Either way, those words should never have come out of his mouth. But now he's taking it seriously, as he should be. I'm glad. Woohoo. At least he's come to his senses now. But that 2-month window was critical. And it's now going to cost many people their lives. Because he couldn't just come right out and say it when, in his words, he said, I knew this was a pandemic long before people were calling it a pandemic. Well, then why didn't you speak up then? That makes no sense to me. And he's so quick to blame China, talking about, oh, how they should have spoke up when they knew. Well, guess what, Donald? So should you have. This is not the time to play the blame game. And I'm also going to stop playing the blame game because we're done blaming China and we're done blaming Donald Trump. Did they play a role in the quick spread of this? Yes. Is there anything we can do about it now? Well, technically, yes. Now we can. But we can't get back that critical 1 or 2 month period. We can't go back in time. So now all we can do is try our best from here and get past this. We know what we have to do, so let's just do it. And if you're one of those weirdos who thinks this entire thing is a bunch of hysteria for no reason, and you have no regard for anything and don't believe in it, let me ask you this. What is the point of that? Why don't you just wash your hands, be clean and sanitary, social distance, all of that for the sake of it maybe being true? Are you that selfish? Okay, let's just say it is being blown way out of proportion. Why wouldn't you just do your part as a citizen anyways to be on the safe side and protect other fellow citizens? No one actually knows, not even you. So why don't you just do your part in the interest of being cautious? Is washing your hands and staying out of crowds that detrimental to your life that you would rather risk the lives of other humans? I mean, come on, just do it. It's not the end of the world, but it could be if you keep acting so selfish. If it's actually not a big deal and you just washed your hands a lot more and isolated for a month or two, then who cares? Seriously, who cares? In the grand scheme of things, that is so minuscule. It's way better to be safe than sorry. And people who have been really practicing the safer than sorry thing are the Russians. Russia has a population of 146 million people, and as of now have about 470 cases. The United States has a population of 327 million people, and we've got 42,000 cases. And Russia even shares a big, long border with China, right where it all started. So they shut down the border at the end of January and started implementing quarantine zones. And I started looking into Russia because of a tweet going around that's not true, by the way. but it's some guy trolling saying Russia has all this under control because Vladimir Putin dropped 800 lions and tigers on the streets to make people stay inside. Obviously, that's not true, but it's just funny. I don't know who comes up with stuff like that. So that's what made me decide to look into what Russia is actually doing. And what I found is that they started testing, identifying, and tracing contacts of people who tested positive a long time ago. They took the virus seriously right when it came out, and they were on it. They did mass testing in early February and told everyone to stay home and isolate ages ago. The U.S. is pretty much doing everything that Russia did, but we're just starting way too late. We're just starting it now. So again, with the whole critical 1 to 2 month window thing that our leadership failed to close. It literally is like an open window. It won without a screen. We just let everything and anything come inside our window, and then we saw, oh no, maybe this is kind of bad, so we added a screen to the window. But the window is still open. It's still cracked, but we just have a screen now. And I think that that's where we're at right now in the U.S. The window's not wide open anymore, and it has a screen, but we need to fully shut and lock the window. So no more, you can go to a friend's house if there's less than 10 people or whatever. No more leisurely grocery visits whenever you want. No more going to restaurants as long as they're seating people 6 feet apart. None of that. It's going to suck, but that's what needs to happen in order to save lives. And even if you're not going to die, who wants to just get sick with this? It sounds awful. It's hard to breathe. You have a terrible fever. Nobody wants that. So let's just shut the window. We need to shut it. And that's it. There's no more half-butt doing things. There's no more, oh, I'm going to hang out with 5 of my friends. No friends. We can't keep doing halfsies. And that's also why so many spring breakers went to Florida. I mean, yes, they're stupid for doing that. They shouldn't have done that. That was not respectful to their fellow humans. It was selfish. But also, it shouldn't be up to a bunch of 19-year-olds going to spring break. The president, or at least the governor of Florida, should have stepped up and been like, no spring break. You can't just have the beaches open and restaurants open and expect people not to go to them. That's what I mean by shutting the window. You can't have it half open with a screen. It needs to be shut and nobody can come in. Okay, after the break, I'm going to get into some weird stuff that our administration is trying out to slow the spread. I'll be back soon.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Hi, I'm back. Okay, so I just compared what we're doing with what Russia did a long while ago, and I'm thinking we're doing just about the same stuff. The only difference is that the U.S. is very late to the game, so that's why we have way more cases than them. And I talked about our window still being open and that it's time to close it off for good, at least for a while, and people are just going to have to stay inside at all times, and if we do that, then I think that we are going to have a pretty good chance at flattening that curve. Okay, so let's move on. What happens to prisoners? They're all in close quarters. I mean, it could spread like wildfire in there, right? Thank goodness people have thought this through, and they started taking precautions actually earlier this month, which is great to hear. The federal system announced they were stopping all visitations, including client meetings, so like an attorney coming to meet their client who's in prison, that sort of thing. All that is halted unless approved by prison authority, which is pretty hard to get. And also inmate transfers, they're not happening right now. Everyone is to stay put right where they are. And these restrictions are also being followed by local jails and systems throughout the whole United States, especially in states like California and Texas. Some states have even been releasing prisoners to diminish the density of their jails. Trump's administration is looking to do this as well. They're looking into releasing any elderly, non-violent prisoners from all federal prisons. And I think that is a great idea. But it's not as simple as it sounds. Many of these people may have been in prison for years. So if they get released, then where are they going to go? You know, it's kind of like starting over a whole new life. And that's hard to do right now with this whole pandemic. I mean, it's hard to do anyways, but especially right now. And many released prisoners start out in a halfway house. And that's not much better than prison in regards to the whole close proximity to others thing. So I think they're looking into all the details before making any hasty decisions. But some state jails have already begun to release dozens of people on a case-by-case basis. I think those who are most susceptible to the virus, I think that's what they're doing. But yeah, they're doing that in places like Oklahoma, Kansas. I think South Carolina is doing it, which I think is good because, I mean, if some old guy's in there for, I don't know, a dime bag of weed from 1982, then whatever, let him out. Okay, anyways, Trump is also doing the most when it comes to North Korea right now. This one threw me for a loop. Everybody on Twitter is sharing how Trump wrote a letter to Kim Jong-un offering help in fighting the virus. I'm sorry, what? Why don't you offer to help us first? I mean, geesh, we got people dying out here. And so does Italy. Yet he writes a personal letter to North freaking Korea, of all the countries to help right now. And that help you're offering, offer it to California or Washington State or New York. North Korea is claiming that they don't even have any cases, which is probably a lie. But I mean, geez, let's help the places that are being ran through right now first. I'm sure Trump is doing this to gain leverage and denuclearization or whatever, but it's North Korea. They're going to do what they're going to do regardless if we help them with this or not. And of course we should help for humanitarian reasons. They're still people and they don't deserve to be sick and die. But I just don't think Trump is doing it because he actually cares for those people. And if that's not why he's doing it, then he should just be putting his efforts elsewhere. Like here, at home, in the US of A, where he's president. Trump is like obsessed with Kim Jong-un. He wants to be him so bad. I mean, he should just head over there and kiss him on the mouth already. All right, moving on. I've got a friend named Matt stuck in Peru right now. He has been traveling the past few months on a backpacking trip. Very similar to what I did this time last year. It's very crazy to think about. I was born in 96, so I graduated and went traveling. If I were born in 97, I would not have done this trip, or I'd be stuck like Matt. It's weird to think about. I had the journey of a lifetime, experienced so many things, had a great adventure. They're memories I will cherish forever. And it could have been so different if I were just born a year later. It's crazy. Okay, but anyways, Matt, he decided to go traveling for a couple months, and now he's landed in Peru. He's staying in a hostel. And if you aren't familiar with hostels, they're like lodges for backpackers to stay at. They're much cheaper than hotels. For example, when I was backpacking in Southeast Asia, I never paid more than like $10 a night. You're all up in other people's space though. You share a room with 4 to 12 strangers, depending on the room type. You all share showers, kitchens, everything else. They're designed to kind of be just like a place to rest your head, a home base, if you will, because most of the people staying in them are out and about and adventuring the whole day. So it's kind of just a place to come back and sleep or relax for a little bit. But now Peru is on a complete lockdown. One of the most strict lockdowns that I've seen so far. No one is coming in or out of there at all. And they're using the military to enforce the rules, which is kind of scary. So to find out more about Matt, stick around. I'm going to talk about what he's been posting to his social media to keep us all updated and how he says Peru is handling things. So I'll be right back.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. Jordan and Keith is Entertainment Tonight meets Access Hollywood.
I'm Jordan. The guy laughing, that's Keith.
Yeah, I'm Keith.
An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Okay, so my friend Matt, he is currently quarantined in Peru with no hope of leaving anytime soon. He's kind of been documenting everything on his social media, and I've been following along and asking him questions here and there as time goes on. And he recently sent me a video on Snapchat of one of his hostel mates saying, I have a bad cough, so I either have a cough or I have the coronavirus. And then Matt turns the camera around on himself and he's wearing a mask and kind of freaked out. And that's scary because in a hostel you are so close to one another. And he also told me that somebody who left said hostel a couple days ago actually tested positive. So the guy's not there anymore, but it's still maybe lingering, of course, because we know how contagious it is. They're all quarantined in this hostel now. And he posted on his Instagram saying that doctors are coming to the hostel to administer 2 tests. And if they test positive, then the whole entire hostel will be on lockdown for 28 more days, even with military personnel at the doorsteps monitoring the quarantine. And that means everybody who's inside, they're basically all going to get the virus. They're all stuck in this small place together. They have no choice but to share a bathroom, a kitchen, everything. There's just no privacy in a hostel. And Matt has said he's reached out to the U.S. Embassy, the news, and he's even currently working with some sort of agent to try to proceed with a political evacuation. And this is all on his Instagram. If you kind of want to look at it for yourself, his Instagram name is @nomading. Get it? Like, because he's like a nomad traveling around, but it's spelled NOMATTING because his name is Matt, like nomading. Okay, anyways. So if you want to check him out and see his situation, then go for it. I feel for him. He's in a foreign place. He wasn't intending to spend this much time there. And, you know, he fears things are only going to get worse at this point. And if he gets really sick, he's probably going to have to be treated in some Peruvian hospital. And then how does he pay for that? Or does his insurance work there? It's just all up in the air. And U.S. planes might even stop going to Peru altogether. But even if some are there right now, he's completely quarantined. And there's armed guards outside keeping him from leaving, which is heinous. And it seems like a nightmare. And of course, everybody in the hostel is feeling that way. Not just Matt. There's people from all over. There's other Americans too. And he says that people are just getting sick left and right. And it's scary. And there's more than one hostel in Peru. So they're probably all going through something similar. And there's a language barrier too. So that makes things hard. He said in one of his comments that he even thought about climbing out of the window and scaling down the wall with bed sheets, you know, like tying the bed sheets together and propelling down, because they'd rather go out, gather supplies, and live off the land somewhere, isolated from everybody, than be stuck in some dingy hostel with people who are testing positive for the virus. He'd literally rather live on a mountainside by himself. He's thought about doing that, but it's hard. He can't even if he were to get out of the hostel, there's just police on every corner, everywhere, just making sure that everybody's staying inside. And I'll keep you guys updated as I get updates from him. It's pretty intense stuff, and I really hope if he does get sick, his body can power through it. That's hard. It's scary. He's a good guy. Okay, and so while poor Matt has been stuck in Peru, officials have been trying to decide what to do about the Olympics. And they've recently come to the decision to postpone them until next year, which is a smart idea. They were set to begin on July 24th, but that is no longer the case. The organization itself hasn't yet released an official statement or anything, but a veteran International Olympic Committee member named Dick Pound spoke with USA Today, and he told them, quote, "On the basis of the information the IOC has, postponement has been decided. The parameters going forward have not been determined, but the games are not going to start on July 24th. That much I know," end quote. And the Olympics is a tricky one because the athletes prepare, completely altering their lifestyle, and now they have to keep it up for another year. And a lot can happen in a year. And the athletes' training has been impacted by the virus. Obviously, they can't go to their normal training facilities and do what they need to do. It's interrupted qualification procedures. Just everything is all messed up. So it's definitely best that it's getting postponed. But there's a lot that the IOC is going to have to figure out to pull all of this off and still make it fair. The only other times that the Olympics have been canceled were in times of war, specifically World War I and World War II. So this is pretty much like being at war, except it's the whole world against some alien virus. But, at least we're all in this together. Okay, so after the break, I am going to talk about DJ D-Nice and his virtual dance parties. So stay tuned.
The GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hey, so I just talked about how the Olympics got postponed. There's not many details about it yet, but all we know is that the games are for sure not happening this summer due to coronavirus. So to move into something a bit lighter, let's talk about Derek Jones, better known by his stage name DJ D-Nice. He has been trying to stay positive through this and is using his DJ skills and love for music to bring people together. He's taken to Instagram Live to host virtual dance parties that have been attracting tens of thousands of viewers. And this past weekend, one of his parties reached 100,000 viewers and included a bunch of celebrity names. Even Michelle Obama joined. And when he saw that her name popped up, he could not contain his excitement. It was super cute. Also, both of the Democratic candidates, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, joined at one point too. Everybody was calling it #ClubQuarantine. So if you want to check out his virtual dance parties to keep yourself moving and occupied, you can go to his Instagram. It's at D-Nice, D as in dog, and then nice, N-I-C-E. Okay, and then on my last podcast, I talked about a few celebrities who have been tested for the virus, and what do you know? It's spread to even more celebrities. So do you remember The Bachelor a few seasons ago? The guy Colton Underwood? He's now dating that super pretty blonde girl Cassie from the show. Well, guess what? He's got it. And also he's stuck at his girlfriend Cassie's family's house. I guess he's isolated upstairs on the 3rd floor by himself, and Cassie's family has been kind of taking care of him, bringing him a plate of food, checking on him every once in a while, making sure he's breathing and alive and doing well. And Colton is a pretty healthy dude. Not to mention, he is so freaking hot, it makes me healthy just looking at him. But anyways, he's posted to his Instagram talking about how much of a struggle this has been and what a toll it's taken on his body and his lungs. He says it feels like he can only use about 20% of his lungs, and he's so exhausted he can barely walk to the bathroom. And I've seen a lot of people take to social media talking about their symptoms, and exhaustion is definitely a key factor, and the whole breathing thing. And Colton is so super healthy, and it's a bit unnerving. That boy exercises all the time, eats healthy, does everything right for his body, and he is still really very sick. He's been prescribed medications, and also he got prescribed an inhaler. So it just goes to show that this virus really can take down just about anyone. It's scary. And to sprinkle a little bit of irony on your day, Senator Rand Paul has also tested positive. The same man who was the only senator who opposed a coronavirus relief package last month. He's asymptomatic, but got tested anyways due to his extensive travels that he's been taking recently. And what do you know? Yeah, he tested positive. And good thing he got tested, because otherwise he'd still just be gallivanting about and infecting other people, because he doesn't have any symptoms right now. So we'll see if he starts to develop symptoms. But if he does, let's wish him a speedy recovery. And, hopefully this will get him to push for more relief packages in the future. And okay, so a little fun trend that's popping up in places around the U.S. is to put up your Christmas lights on your house to raise people's spirits. People have been, lighting up their front yard trees, their porches, their houses to keep themselves occupied and their neighbors smiling. Social media users have been using hashtag lights for life and hashtag corona kindness and then they will post a picture of their lights outside their house to kind of boost morale. And I love this trend. It's a safe way to make people happy because it doesn't involve getting close to anybody. And also, if you want to enjoy the lights as just like a bystander, you don't have to get close to anybody to look at the lights from afar. So I think this is a pretty fun thing to do, especially if you're trapped in the house with a family with maybe younger kids. It might be something to do, like an activity to go out and kind of decorate the yard while still keeping a safe distance from your neighbors and other people. And, hey, at least we have our phones and social media to keep us occupied. Imagine, what if this happened in 2005? Think about how bored we would be. There were no iPhones, no Netflix, no social media, or at least not how we know social media today. We can FaceTime our friends when we're lonely and stay connected to our family members during isolation and use Zoom. I went on Zoom and I've had a little family chat with my family in San Francisco, my uncle in Seattle, my grandma in South Carolina, and then my aunt and uncle in Austin, Texas. And we were all chatting away, and it was so nice to do that. And that would not have been the case like 15 years ago. Heck, maybe even 10 years ago, you couldn't do something like that. And we can have virtual dance parties with thousands of strangers. So let's kind of just try to focus on positive things and think about what we do have. We have ample information right at our fingertips, and we don't have to wait for the weekly newspaper to update us on coronavirus. We have new updates every day to keep us in the loop, which is great. We can further our education by taking free online classes. We can watch a new movie, learn a new way to do makeup. There's lots to do. just gotta be creative and let yourself kind of think outside of the box. Yes, this is a pretty difficult time. It's dark, it's scary, it's full of anxiety. I mean, I'm scared about it, and it kind of freaks me out doing all my research for my podcast. I mean, there's really nothing else to talk about except for coronavirus, and I'm trying to kind of make things more interesting, but it's making me kind of scared too. But I'm just trying to stay inside, isolate myself, wash my hands. If I do have to go outside, I'll go on a walk around my neighborhood, stuff like that. But it is scary, so let's kind of try to focus on what we do have. So be safe out there. Just heed with caution, and we'll eventually get through this. Humanity's pretty strong. We can do it. It might take some time, but it's not going to be the end of the world, I hope. Thank you for listening. This is the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Once again, I'm your host, Kayla Moeller. And if you could do me a favor and subscribe to the show, write a nice review, that really, really helps us. And don't forget to give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks again, guys, and have a wonderful night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.